Hello everyone and welcome back to the Synergy Sanctum. My name is Justin. Thank you so much for stopping by. Here at the Synergy Sanctum, we specialize in all things related to Magic the Gathering, with a specific focus on deck building. So I aim to show you very quick deck techs that'll show you all of the cards in the deck and how they work together to ultimately achieve the goals of that deck. If you're not already, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. And we also have a sister channel now, so head on over to Commander Coliseum and check out their content as well. And for today's deck tech, we have Ragost, Deft Gastronaut, an EDH budget build for this very exciting Edge of Eternities commander. Ragost is awesome. He is a Boros commander, and he is going to turn all of your artifacts into foods because he is a hungry chef. And his ability says that for one, you can tap to sacrifice a food, and he's going to do 3 damage to every opponent. And then at the beginning of each end step, if you've gained life this turn, then we're going to untap Ragost. So very, very fun commander here. Tons of different synergies, and we are going to go through them all. This deck is very affordable. TCG market value currently is $149 to $179, and our land count is 35, with 22 of those being basics and 13 of those being non-basics. So we are going with a strategy that is focused on playing non-token artifacts, so we aren't going to be relying too much on making food tokens because Ragost is doing that for us. So instead, we're going to be playing a ton of non-token artifacts and artifacts that have benefits when they either enter or leave the battlefield, because Ragost is going to be sacrificing them to do damage. So to start today, we are going to go into our win cons, because that's what everybody wants to know. How is my deck going to win? So we are being very messed up today with the first win con here with Mycosynth Lattice and Vandal Blast. So Mycosynth Lattice says that all permanents are artifacts in addition to their other types. Everything outside of the battlefield is colorless, and players can spend mana as though it were any color. So it's going to turn everything into artifacts, and then for just 5 mana, you get to destroy all of your opponent's shit. So as soon as everything is an artifact, you're going to play Vandal Blast and blow up everything, including their lands, and they're probably just going to GG at that point. We do have a Lifegain theme going with this deck, so Aetherflux Reservoir has a perfect place here. Every time you're casting a spell, you're gaining a life, which is great, but as soon as we hit 50, we get to Death Star somebody, and then if all of that fails, we have around 40 artifacts in the deck and cards that make artifacts as well, so Hellkite Tyrant is another kind of I win card for this deck, and in addition, when he deals combat damage, he takes all the artifacts that that player controls, so he's getting you even more food for Ragost to eat. Moving on, we have a ton of life gain in the deck, like I said. We're running the Soul Sister, so Soul's Attendant and Soul Warden. Every time a creature comes in, you're gaining a life. We are running Leonin Elder. He does the same thing, but it's for artifacts when they come into play. A really old card that I didn't even know existed, but synergizes really well with this deck with Scrap Heap. Scrap Heap says when an artifact goes into the graveyard, you're going to gain a life. And we are running Basilisk Collar as well as Witch's Clinic and Spirit Link and Spirit Loop to all give Ragost lifelink. So if his ability is to sack a food and then do 3 damage to every opponent, if you're in a pot of 4, that ends up being 9 damage, and that ends up being 9 life that you're going to gain in addition to all the life you've probably gained from the food already. We're running Arbaz Mirror, which says whenever a non-token artifact comes in, it deals a damage and you gain a life. And then Seer Ginger, the Meal Ender, finally found a place that I feel like it's going to work. Whenever an artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, he gets a counter and he scries, and then for 2 we can get rid of him and gain life equal to his power. So we're going to be putting a lot of artifacts into the graveyard, and Seer Ginger is going to benefit from all of them. And then we have a lot of enter and leaving the battlefield synergy, so kind of building on what the Soul's Attendant and Soul Warden are doing. We have the ones that are focused on the artifacts entering or leaving. So a new one from Edge of Eternities, Wealthstalker Ardent. Whenever another creature artifact comes in, it's dealing a damage to every opponent. Reckless Fireweaver and Ingenious Artillerist are doing the same thing. We are running Togo Goblin Weaponsmith, so every land we play is going to make a rock, and that rock is going to turn into food for Ragost to eat. Servo schematic is bringing in a friend every time it enters or leaves. Same with Nimble Right schematic. We're running Farid Enterprising Salvager because whenever an artifact goes to the graveyard, you get to make another artifact called Scrap. And I'm not even really sure what Scrap does. Put in the comments if you know what it does. But Scrap is going to be food for Ragost, so that's what it does. And then we are running Pia's Revolution, which is really good in this deck. So whenever a non-token artifact is going to the graveyard from the battlefield, you get to return it to your hand unless an opponent's going to take a bolt. So you can see that a lot of these artifacts aren't really doing much. They're not super threats, but they are kind of keeping our engine going and feeding our commander and gaining life. So they can decide to have us throw something like Servo Schematic in the graveyard, but if they don't, then you get it right back to your hand and you get to do it all again. Another one from Edge of Eternities, Weapons Manufacturing. Whenever a non-token artifact you control enters, you get to create a token called Munitions, which says when this leaves the battlefield, it does 2 damage to any target. So again, Munitions is going to become food for our lobster monster here, and then when we eat it, it's going to deal 2 damage to any target. And then Scrap Trawler, really good showstopper in this deck. Whenever it or another artifact is put into the graveyard, you get to return one with lesser mana value. And then we have even more food for Ragost. So it's well and good that all of our artifacts are turning into food, but why not play a little more food? So we're running Nutrient Block, Bumbleflower Sharepot, Instant Ramen, Lembas, Carrot Cake are all artifacts that are also foods or bring in food. And then with Lembas, it goes back to your library once it hits the graveyard. Carrot Cake is bringing in rabbits. Bumbleflower Sharepot has some removal on it. Nutrient Block says when it's put into the graveyard, you get to draw a card. And then same with Instant Ramen, but it does it at the ETB. And then we're running Battle of the Bywater. The hobbits are hungry for food. This is going to come in and destroy creatures with power 3 or greater, and then we get food tokens for each creature we control. So we are running really low to the ground. This is going to be pretty much a one-sided board wipe. And then other good stuff in the deck. So Ragost is going to untap at every end step if we gain life, but we can also have him untap at every untap step with Drum Bellower, and then we can have him untap at every combat as well with Sting. So additional untaps for Ragost. Phyrexia's Core is a backup sack outlet. Ulsgard lets us reconstruct those artifacts that we lost and bring them back in a pair. Leonin Abunis is protecting our stuff from our opponents. Mystic Forge is letting us cast stuff off the top. Ghostly Prison is protecting us from attackers. Deflecting Palm is redirecting damage and stopping it. And then we're running Blasphemous Act as a board wipe and Chaos Warp for targeted removal. And then we've got a ton of draw on the deck. So Training Post, again, it's an artifact, it's food, but we can also pay 1 to sack another artifact and draw. The Gaffer is gaining us a draw at our end step if we gain 3 or more life, which is exactly what a food gives us. Market Gnome is giving us a draw and a life when it dies. Terrarian is giving us draw when it dies. Both of the implements, the improvement and the combustion, give us draw when they get sacked. Collector's Vault is giving us repeatable draw. Ichor Wellspeen gives us draw when it enters or is put into the graveyard. And then Unexpected Windfall and Big Score, which give us 2 draw and 2 treasures at the cost of 1 discard. And then another showstopper from the Edge of Eternity set that synergizes perfectly here is Halia, Guided by Light. So whenever she or another creature or artifact enters the battlefield, you're going to gain a life. And then at end step, she has the same ability as the Gaffer. If we've gained 3 or more, we get to draw. Circuit Mender and Filigree Familiar gain us life when they come in and draws when they leave. Chromatic Star gives us mana, but then it also gives us draw when it leaves. Demand Answers is giving us draw at the cost of sacking an artifact or discarding a card. And then we have tutors to get the artifacts that we might want, like Mycosith Lattice, Reckless Handling, and Oswald Findlebender all let us tutor artifacts out of the deck. And then Inventor's Fair is letting us do it as long as we have 3 or more artifacts. And then finally, our mana for the deck. So we are running all of the artifact lands that exist for Boros, like Ancient Den, Great Furnace, Rustvale Bridge, and Darksteel Citadel. But we have our Soul Ring, we have Foundry Inspector for the discounts. We didn't run too many other discounts because we are low to the ground. Most of the artifacts are 3 or less. Solemn to fetch us a land and give us a draw when he goes away. Nuka-Cola Vending Machine is so broken here. Every time we sack a food, which is all we're going to be doing, we are creating creating tapped treasure tokens, so giving us a ton of mana in this deck. Prize Statue and Gleaming Barrier, as well as Piggy Bank, give us treasures when they leave. Slagstone Refinery is giving us Power Stones. Mycosith Wellsprings letting us fetch a land. And then Spire of Industry for a life. We get to add a mana of any color as long as we control an artifact, which we will. And with that, our show has come to an end. Thank you so much for watching our video. And if you enjoyed that video, feel free to share it out with any friends who might find value in it as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. We hope to see you again soon. Have a good one.